And again, it's so good to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Me too. So let's begin with 5 years ago. This pandemic changed so many things about our lives, and I'm sure it affected your world as well. How did you get through it? How did it change the way that you approach things today?
Well, on a professional level, I found it really liberating. Had a brick and mortar private practice where I was seeing like 20, 25 clients a week. And I just published my first book in 2018, which became a bestseller. And I was sort of positioned pretty well to level things up in my business. So I closed my private practice and I started doing everything that I had been doing in person online. And people were like, we're not sure that's going to work. Can you do Reiki? Can you do energy healing? Can you do psychic readings online? Well, everybody had to do it. So it sort of propelled me, I think, out of the local and into more onto the national, to the world stage, and allowed me to really expand my business in a way that I think would have been really difficult before that. So professionally, it was great. Personally, I was like quarantining alone and did what everybody else did. I got a pandemic puppy and she's 5 years old now. So I know it's lonely and hard and scary. I think it was for so many people on a personal level, but on a professional level, it was good for me.
So let's get into there's so many things that you do on paper, and I want to get a handle on it by asking you this. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of kids. So let's say they're 12 years old. It's career day. And one of the kids wants to know what you do for a living. How do you answer that child?
I'm a professional psychic and I have been since I was 19. It's a very strange and cool job. Um, and when I was only 19 when I started, and I quickly was that was back in the 80s, by the way. I quickly learned I didn't have enough skills, so I went back to school and became a therapist and added therapy and into my psychic readings. And then in 1999, I learned Reiki and added Reiki into the mix. But these days, I mostly write and teach. So I write books and teach people, and I'm like a psychic mentor, the person that you would go to if your psychic abilities were opening out of nowhere and you didn't know what to do. It's kind of a scary and freaky experience if you're not, you know, sure what to do with that. So really like training psychics, healers, and empaths to fully step into their gifts because I think the world needs all the healers it could get now more than ever. And that's really my mission in life is to create an army of healers to go out there and save the planet.
So when was this going to be your career from the word go? Like, let's say going back to when you were 12, what did you think your life was going to be? What was your dream gig?
When I was 12, I snuck into the movie theater to see the movie Poltergeist. And there was this professional psychic, and I was one of those like I see dead people kids, so I was always been able to see things and spirits and angels and energy and dead people my whole life. But back then, I grew up outside of Boston in the 60s and 70s. This wasn't a thing. It wasn't something you could talk about. It wasn't like there were no new age bookstores, no podcasts, no psychics on TV, no internet, nothing, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, what am I going to do? And I remember writing in my journal when I was like really little that when I grew up, I wanted to be a psychic and an author, which is totally what I've done. But when I was sitting in watching the movie Poltergeist, there's this professional psychic,
Yeah.
and I was like, you can do that. I'm going to do that. So I literally was 12 when I decided that's what I was going to do.
I remember how badly that movie freaked me out, and I remember hearing years later that when they were filming this hardcore scenes at the closet, it was
Yep.
freaking them out pretty bad too.
Yeah, a lot of bad things happened on that set. It was
That's
kind of
right.
cursed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that surprising to you that all of that kind of got unleashed while they were probing, what they were probing turned out to kind of come after them?
Not really. I mean, you got to be careful with that stuff.
Yeah.
Like if you go looking for trouble in the psychic worlds, and it happens now to paranormal investigators and, those paranormal TV shows and just regular paranormal investigation teams, it's like a dangerous job. You're walking into a situation that might be hazardous and not everybody believes, not everybody thinks it's real. So they don't really take steps to protect or defend themselves. I'm a big believer in psychic self defense. I always say it's a little bit like not really believing in sharks, but chumming the water and jumping in just to see if sharks are real.
Yeah. But there
You
has to be rules though. I mean, it's kind of like whether I don't know, I guess if you don't believe it, you're not going to have rules, but it seems like between this realm and the other realm, there's got to be some set of rules or you're going to walk into a danger zone, just like this reality.
It's more like common sense or street smarts,
Yeah.
like, don't play with Ouija boards. Don't take the Ouija board to the abandoned mental hospital on Halloween and smoke a lot of weed and then expect you're not going to come home with some friends,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that it's like, don't join a cult. Don't join a cult that summons demons. Like there's kind of some common sense there. And yet I'm constantly surprised how many people don't follow those rules. I think partly because they don't think it's real. They don't think really anything bad, sort of titillating. It's sort of like, or this desire to prove that the supernatural is real, you know,
Yeah.
can kind of override our common sense. And by the time you figure out, I mean, who didn't play with Ouija boards? We all did it, you know, and it can be quite dangerous. It could be fine, but it's also sometimes not. So I think, we have to have good street smarts, and there's not like a manual for that,
Yeah.
I wish there should be, but
Yeah.
there isn't. Maybe I should write one.
Yeah, there you go. So let me ask you this. What was the first time that you knew that you saw something on the other side or you had some sense? What happened?
It was my very first memory ever. I was lying in my crib, and there were all these beings standing around me, glowing, light all around them, sparkling, shining. And then my mom walked into the room, opened the door, walked into the room, and they all disappeared. It's my very first memory. So I was literally born psychic. Grew up in a super haunted house. That's because, Murphy's Law. That's the way that's going to go.
Yeah.
And I don't know if my house is haunted or if I was a ghost magnet, because a lot of really psychic children are quite attractive to spirits, and
Yeah.
every ghost in a 5 mile radius moves in. So I don't know which it was, but that's really what my childhood was like. And there was never a time when I didn't experience those things.
So did you embrace it? Like who was there anyone around you that was telling you to embrace it, or did your own internal meter say it's okay? These are benign um spirits. This is okay.
It was really pretty dicey, and I was lucky my parents were hippies, you know
Yeah.
and they took me to transcendental meditation when I was 10. They were very open-minded, but back then, I mean, I was just told it was my imagination. You know what I mean? Oh, you have such a great, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm not imagining this. But what were you going to do? There was nowhere to go, and nobody to talk to really about it. I knew even when I was little that I had to be quiet. I had to be quiet about it, that it didn't go well if I talked to other people about it. I couldn't talk to other kids about it. I couldn't talk to grown-ups about it. Psychic children are freaky to adults, and the adults will be like, I don't know what you're doing, but cut that out right now. Um, so I was really on my own. And I was just trying to figure out what was going on and try to pretend to be normal in public, really.
The one thing I think about this life that kind of gets people the uncertainty of where we go after this. And I think that when you have the ability to see the other side, it would just
Yeah.
have to make your ride in this life just a little bit more comfortable to understand maybe lineages of past lives and where we're going. Is there any level of you that's comforted by being able to have this gift?
Yes. And it's one of the, like, I am 100% sure what happens when we die, because I've talked to literally thousands of spirits on the other side, and they all say the same thing. They all say the same thing that the people who have had NDEs say, you know? And so to me, that's quite comforting. I am 100% sure we exist beyond this physical being that we have. I've seen my own past lives. I've seen other people's past lives. I mean, I feel the presence of spirits and, angels around me. I know they're around all the time. And I do find that I find that incredibly comforting. I have a lot of faith, and I've always had that. I feel like it must be really scary and hard to live without that.
The one thing that I think about the older I get is that, and when I talk to people that are energetically sensitive and see the other side, and that this is a gift. The fact that we've had this soul brought into this kind of orifice that we all have,
Yeah.
that we have been picked, like as much as humans bemoan things that don't go our ways, we're always wanting more, we're always, dreaming for these bigger and better things. At the end of the day, at the base level of it, to be a human being in this reality and to experience the marvels that exist around us every day, do you ever think about that? The fact that our souls being on this planet at this particular time is a pretty fortunate thing for all of us.
You have to stand in line for a long time to get one of these bodies. You really do. And it's a little bit of the golden ticket, you know. And there's a lot that happens here that we don't get to experience when we're just in spirit. We experience things like, you want to enjoy that cup of coffee you're having right now, you got to have one of these. You want to like hold your newborn child and feel the love, experience love, you got to have a physical body. And it's the difference. I think the difference between like reading a recipe and eating a meal. When we're just up in heaven, when we're in our spirit form, we can have the concepts of those things. But in order to have this experience the way we do, we have to have the nervous system, the body, the brain, all of that, the sensory system, to actually experience. And that's a gift. And it's a tough world down here. So we don't get a guarantee about what we experience. We're going to experience the whole gamut of life, the good, the bad, the ugly, the in between, the hardships, the love. And that, experiencing that range of polarity between the light and the dark is what we come here to do, to experience the results of our choices. So we have polarity, we have free will, we have this physicality. That means we can choose, and we literally experience with our body, our being, our feelings, our mind, the results of the choices that we make. And that's, I think, how we learn and grow spiritually, how we evolve spiritually.
So, who was the first person that made you feel comfortable to embrace the fact that you had these abilities and you had this clairvoyance to see the other side? Was there a figure like that for you?
There was. I mean, my grandmother was really good about it. She taught me a lot. But honestly, it was the first person, one of the first adults who ever said anything to me about it was Maharishi Yogi. My hippie parents took me to transcendental meditation when I was 10. And, I had no idea what was going on, but he talked to everybody, brought everyone into the back room and did an individual, like, you know, um, sort of ritual. And he was like talking to his translator. He was kind of like, blah, blah, blah. Then he really looked at me and he was like, oh, honey, I'm so sorry. He said, you have a gift. Your childhood's going to be really difficult. If you had been born in my country, we would know what to do with you. But he said, because America's basically spiritually bankrupt, his words, not mine,
Yeah.
you're out of luck. So you're just gonna have to tough it out. But you really need to do that because you're gonna help a lot of people when you're an adult. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. Like somebody said something to me. Somebody saw, and I had no, I took it in, I held it forever. But I had no idea who he was until I went to university and I studied comparative religion. And then I was like, oh my God, that was Maharishi Yogi who said that to me. Like a gift. Like, how does
Yeah.
that happen? I mean, it
Right.
was such a little moment of help and brightness when I really needed it as a child.
So when is it appropriate for human beings to want to like look to the other side to a relative or look into the spirit world to figure something out? Are there rules to that as to when people should approach you or approach somebody to kind of figure things out?
Whenever you need it. I mean, there are more rules about how to do it. Go to a reputable medium. Don't use a Ouija board. Don't use a spirit board because that's sort of an open doorway into more of the like nasty spirits can come through that. But I think it's incredibly healing for us to be able to talk to the people that have crossed over. I'm a huge fan of evidential mediumship, where the medium brings forth evidence that sort of proves to you that it is actually your loved one. And sometimes we can have the most healing relationships with our relatives after they're dead. That kind of can really improve their communication skills, or they see things in a different way, especially if we've been kind of gridlocked, in a power struggle with somebody. They might be more open to hearing our point of view, or open to like a conversation, or naturally come more into a state of forgiveness. a lot of times when they come through, they want to say they're sorry. They want to say they were sorry they were such a jerk to you when you were like a little kid, or they can't see that or couldn't see that that was true when they were, driving the meat suit, but they can see it from the other side. So I feel like there's such power, such potential healing in those conversations. I would say anytime you feel the desire to do that, you should just make sure you're working with somebody reputable.
So if you wanted to do that yourself, can you just do that or do you need to go to somebody else?
It sort of depends. Like, my dad passed away in 2020, and I have pretty regular conversations with him that I know really are coming from him. But if I were super triggered about it, like right after it happened, when we're really emotional, when we're really triggered and reactive, we lose our connection. So that's when I go to my psychic pals and ask for help. um yeah, it depends on whether or not it's always clear. It's easier and clearer to see somebody else's stuff sometimes than to see our own.
Yeah. So with
Yeah,
everything going on right now, there's so many disturbances and things that have kind of happened, especially since COVID. Are you hopeful? Do you remain hopeful about humans and what we're doing?
I do. I do remain hopeful. I think it's a very difficult time because we're in this, deconstruction phase where, everything is breaking down, this massive systems failure. And, from a theoretical standpoint, a philosophical standpoint, I think it's got to happen. It's just sort of a natural part of the, how things are created, they endure, and then they're destroyed. And when they're destroyed, the evolutionary process means we get an upgrade, we get something better than we had. I think we can all agree we're in like pretty serious system failure. Nothing's working, everything's broken. We need a reset. We're in the middle of that. As human beings, it's incredibly scary, painful, frightening. It's not fun. We hate it as humans. We hate change. We hate chaos. We hate, those things. And I think it's necessary. So I know a lot of the people that I work with are on the planet on purpose during this to help. They came to be part of the reconstruction team. I look at my kids, in their generation, and I feel like they're part of the reconstruction team. And I look forward to what they're going to do. I'm sure they're going to do a better job. They're going to have a crack at it. And so I think there's always opportunity inside the hardship, and that doesn't diminish how difficult it is.
The one thing I think about in the spirit realm is that a lot of things that happen with humans is passed down generationally. Like when I
Mhm.
think about my lineage of the Dimino lineage, it came from Shaka, Sicily. There's all these successive generations prior to what I even know as great grandparents. Have you ever gone really, really far back into your lineage and found like the first people of your namesake and kind of how things developed into your family lineage? Or would that be beneficial to us as humans to go back that far to see how we evolved to where we are today?
Think it's super beneficial. It's very I found it very painful. And I don't know, just like the hardships that my relatives endured, um, the horrible things that happened to them and also the horrible things they did. I don't think it's for the faint of heart, to do that. But there are really beautiful lineage healing techniques, like the family constellations is a really powerful technique for that. And I think as we clean up the past, we also clear the energetic, for our future generations. Like it's one of the best things you can do for your children, your grandchildren, is, heal that stuff in yourself. As you heal it in yourself, you heal it for the generations on both sides. So I think it's incredibly powerful and sort of painful.
When you talk about the earlier generations, medicine was in an archaic place. There was a lot of pain. There was a lot of things that modern marvels have eradicated. Do you ever think that right now, with what we're living through, with technology and access to things that generations before didn't have, do you think that we're in a charmed era of this human evolutionary cycle?
I would say that we probably are. There's more potential for abundance than probably there ever has been, but there's also a lot of problems. There's a lot of that technology brings, issues with it. So I don't know, net gain, net loss. I'm not sure. I think is we can look back, probably our grandkids will look back and be able to say accurately, well, it was a golden age until they blew themselves up, or
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what I mean? We'll see.
I remember going to Rome in my 20s and I was in the Colosseum and a cell phone went off and I was like, wow, the just, that chasm between this antiquitous place of
Yeah.
the cradle of civilization and a cell phone going off. And I think about what you're doing on an elemental level. Spirits are coming to you in a very organic, elemental way. And then we have AI.
Yeah.
What do you see AI being this thing that could be a precursor to really, really bad things for the human race?
It's so hard to say that. I mean, on a personal level, I'm a huge fan. I love it, and I use it all every day for my
Yeah.
business. It's an incredible productivity tool. And I'm rather smitten with chat. I'm like, I love you, chat. But uh, that's just today. Who knows what AI is capable? I will say, I don't think we're stewarding that, birth of AI very well. You know, I mean, what are we teaching it? Could we put some more ground rules around it? Also, I grew up in the generation where we watched The Terminator, and we were all just kind of certain that AI was going to take over and eradicate humanity. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I was listening to Greg Braden, who I'm a big fan of his. I love his work, and he was saying we're the last generation of humans that won't have sort of you know chips in their head connecting them to the net. You know what I mean? And that the next evolution of humanity is going to be more, have technology sort of in our bodies. um I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
I think about being a Gen Xer, and I remember having rotary phones as a kid. I
Yep.
remember the first dial up. I remember this historical lineage of technology before it exploded into this hyper pace that was on the Jetsons as a kid. And I
Yeah.
think it's interesting because those generational loops are going away, where it's only going to be like these kids now that were like in kindergarten in 2020 know a pandemic. When they get older, they're going to be like, yeah, pandemic was just a part of what they knew when they were growing up. But for us, it wasn't. Like if you give a kid a CD right now, they don't know what it is. Or if you play the
Right.
modem sound, they don't know what it is. So we are going to get to that point where the residue of this old world is going to start going away.
Yeah. I'm in the same generation as you, and it's an interesting bridge generation. Between the old, you know, um, kind of, old school tech and what they're coming in now. And I sometimes feel my age when the newest tech comes around. I'm like, I can't figure out how to use this. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Even though I don't think I'm bad, it's just I'm bad at tech. It's just the changes are. I feel sort of that old person now. Like I just wanted. I almost bought a car and I couldn't because I couldn't figure out how to use the tech in
Mm,
the car.
yeah. I,
You know,
yeah, I'm going to try to hold on to that old world when it comes to
I'm
cars
just
as
like,
much as I
just
can.
give me my Jeep. I know how to where all the buttons are.
That's it.
God, I sound like a grandmother.
No, well, that it happens. It just does. Age does that. I try not to. I stop myself. I'm like, I don't want to be the old guy. All right. I just
Yeah.
don't want to be that dude. But you do. You fall into it because it's just the way it works. So I'm curious. I've been thinking while we've been talking here about how interesting it is that you have these abilities to see the other side, and I'm intrigued by it. I'm absolutely intrigued by those. And I live with three generations of women that all have those abilities of doing that. So
Mm.
I'm really kind of cued into it. And I have dreams and I have things that happen here and there, but I don't have it in the way that's described when it's really right there and overt. And I'm curious, why hasn't Hollywood picked up on a TV show where there's a group of people that have these abilities and they go on these adventures and figure it out? Would that be crossing over a line, or do you think that would be interesting to have different scenarios of going
Mm.
back generationally?
I mean, I think there have been certain things that have kind of gone down that road. There was an Anne Rice, book about the generational witches. But I think that would make a great TV show, and I would love to see it more like less sci-fi and fantasy and
Right.
more like the real, like how it really shows up in the world would
Yeah.
be pretty interesting.
That would be. So, if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating, that inspires you, is there anyone you would love to meet and talk to?
Really, I really would love to meet Greg Braden.
Yeah.
I was at a conference with him, and we were, speaking on the same stage, but I didn't get a chance to meet him. And yeah, I think there's some Carolyn Mace is another one of my heroes. There's some, people who are just a bit older than I am that were kind of real front runners when I was kind of learning my stuff that I really admire.
So,
Yeah.
how do you what is it that gets you up every day when your alarm goes off and you go into your day? What is the motivator for you to not only do work at a high level, but to protect yourself and your soul by being surrounded by things that we don't see?
I think that I have sort of this like appreciation, gratitude, joy, and in loveness with being alive, like we were talking about. Like another day, I don't know. I've this my whole entire life. I've had this thing when I turn the water on and the faucet. I'm like, oh my god, thank God there's clean water. Like I don't know where that comes from in my being, but the um pleasures or the cushiness of the life that we live, I have a deep appreciation for. Like, yay, another day. Um, and it's the mission that I talked about, like to create an army of healers to go out and save the world. I'm working on my sixth book right now, and I feel very driven to be of service, I guess I would say, to serve humanity in the way that I can. Um, Around my expertise, that feels like it makes life worth living to me, to know that I make a difference. And I get people who read my books or take my classes. They're like, "Oh my God, you saved my life," or "You really helped me." And that knowing that, because it wasn't easy for me, when I
Yeah.
went through that, it was hard. I did it the hard way. And if I can help somebody else do it the easy way, that's really rewarding for me.
Did you ever watch the show Monk?
Yeah.
Did you see the reboot that came out? It was a movie in 2020.
No. Should I see it? Should I watch it?
You should, and I don't want to give anything away, but there's a scene in there that feeds into what you're talking about. And it's being able to be cognizant that you're changing lives. Do you ever
Yeah.
realize what kind of gift that is? Because and I don't want to give it away, but I got to tangentially be as ambiguous as I can. I think sometimes human beings get to a point where we're doing jobs and we're doing things and we don't see the result and we're wondering, what are we doing? What kind of
Yeah.
effect are we having? And there was a moment in the movie, and you should see it, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And my question to you in a long circle way is, do you ever wake up every day and just at odd times find it to be comforting that you know that you're having a direct impact with this gift that you've been given?
Yeah, I find that extremely comforting, and I think I'm a little blind to it, like we all can be, I think I was thinking when you were talking about Jimmy Stewart and It's a Wonderful Life, like how do we really know what our impact is unless we have a moment like that? But I was talking to somebody yesterday on the phone, and she was like, "I'm so nervous talking to you." And I was like, "Why?" She's like, "I've read all your books. I'm totally fangirling." And I was like, "What? Me?" Like, I, like that's hard for me to kind of compute because I'm just like, well, I'm just out here doing my thing. And there are moments when that happens, and I'm like, okay, I have to sort of try to take it in, otherwise it kind of bounces off me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, can I take that in? Can I really hear what she said? Okay, I guess it's really, and I, especially around the books, because they are a pain to write. Oh my God. It's not easy to write a book, and I'm in the middle of one right now. And it's really challenging, but I'm like, oh, okay, that's what keeps me going, is hearing from people like that say, tell me that the work I'm doing is impacting them. Yeah, for sure.
So there's been so many revelatory things that you said during this conversation. So I'm going to give you a little gift here. About a month ago, Rob Riggle was at a conference that I was at, of all people, and it was there was educators, and I was presenting on podcasting. And while he was getting interviewed, he said he just wrapped up a movie about Jimmy Stewart's life. And the first movie he made when he got out of being an active military was It's a Wonderful Life. He was like really, green behind the ears. And there was a scene in that movie where he was in an airplane reliving just being in battle, and he had a panic attack on camera. And it was a part of this movie. And so
Wow.
if you watch it this year, you should pay attention and just realize that was his first role. And it was
Holy
amazing to
moly.
think that because he had such composure. You just it's the iconic movie. I mean, like
Right.
who would have known? They would have thought he would. Anyway, I just when you brought that up, I thought it was interesting. Um,
Cool.
yeah, just that they're but so let me ask you this. At the end of the day, of everything that you've done and evolved to, more importantly in your life, what are you the proudest of?
My children. I have three beautiful children. They're adults now. They're really good, solid people with good hearts and good ethics. I think being a parent is super difficult, you know. So of all of my creations, that's the one I'm the proudest of.
Are any of them psychically sensitive?
I think they all are in their own way. Um, they don't work like I do. They have like, their own career paths, their own things that they're doing. But I think they're all tuned in and self-aware in their own way.
So as you've been on this planet long enough, you've been here for a while, I have too, and you evolved. What has been the most surprising thing about having this gift of seeing the other side? What is something that if you ran in to your, 13-year-old self in a dream tonight and you could compare notes with the young and current version of you, what would be the most surprising thing that you've witnessed or have happened in your life that you didn't expect by having these abilities?
I think that I've seen it's sort of the extreme edges of the dark and the light, you know. I've seen some really dark things, mostly the trauma of other humans, you know. I always say there's nothing as bad as there's nothing in the spirit world that's as bad as what you see on the 6 o'clock news. And it's kind of true, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but there's also incredible light. Like I've seen an amazing, high level spirits, angels, galactic beings, beings of pure consciousness, to connect with them and to get messages from them, sort of as an emissary. Like they can't come down here, so they work with people like me and other psychics to bring the messages, to bring the light. It feels like, I mean, I was a huge science fiction geek, so I loved Star Wars and Star Trek and things like that when I was a kid. And I feel like there's a part where I'm serving the evolution of humanity. We're at this really intense crossroads in our human history. We have sort of the chance to make it or break it, right now. And as more and more of us come online, more of us choose the light, we wake up and we start making better decisions. We raise our frequency, we raise our consciousness. I feel like we have the potential to sort of turn humanity, sort of like turning the Titanic, into a more positive evolutionary track. And to be a part of that is an incredible, a tiny cog, tiny wheel in that bigger machine.
Yeah.
Feels really great.
So if you could go back in time historically and see one event in human history with your own eyes, be a fly on the wall, it wouldn't create any kind of weird ripple in time, but just to see one event that human beings have been a part of, what would you love to have seen with your own eyes?
Well, I would have said the dinosaurs. I would really like to see them, like to
Yeah,
see that sort of very pure, like prehistoric world,
yeah,
before humans were even here. I think that would be super cool as long as I could make it back. And
yes,
I don't know, as far as history goes, I'm going to pull out something that I don't even know if it's real, but like Atlantis, like was that
yeah,
real? Can I go back and see that? Like what is that? What was that all about?
yeah.
You know, um I wonder how how they built the pyramids in Egypt. Were there aliens like with hovercrafts like doing that stuff, or was it actually like let's haul the rocks around? But I think I would like to see if Atlantis was a real thing.
So at the end of the day, Lisa, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, all of your fans, the one that fangirled, everybody that knows you, all of your clients, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm sort of shy and geeky and humble, um, and introverted. So I'm like kind of like I love grandma hobbies. Like I knit and do crossword puzzles and have a garden. And that's kind of like my real self. So I have my, my public persona is like passionate about what I'm doing, but my private self is very I think just geeky and funny. I don't know.
Fred Rogers got interviewed towards the end of his life, and someone said, "What do you like the best? What's been something along the lines of what's been the best thing about getting older?" And he was like, "The quiet." Because when
Mm,
you get older, it's like there's just these things of solitude, and there's so
yeah.
much noise in the world, so much noise that it's
Yeah.
good to just pare it down and just, you know, just kind of incubate yourself from all of that, for
I think
sure.
so. I think for me it's about really not caring what other people think.
Yeah.
Like I turned 60 last year, and I'm like, I just don't care what other people think anymore. Like I'm not going out of my way to people please, or you know caring about what other people think is such a waste of time and energy. And
Yep.
I'm like, now I'm like, whatever.
You look like you found the fountain of youth. You look wonderful for 60, I got to
Thank
say.
you.
So,
Thank you.
if anybody wants to reach out, they have any questions, they're curious, they want to hire you, where do they go? Where's the best place?
My website, lisacampion.com, is the place to go. And you can find all my books on Amazon or any place that sells books. I have a pretty cool YouTube channel where I have a lot of free resources and gifts. I have my own podcast called The Miracle of Healing. Um, and yeah, I teach on my website. I teach Reiki. I teach all levels of psychic development, beginner, intermediate, advanced, and pro level classes. And I just would love to hear from. I come by my website, leave me a message. I'd love to hear from you.
Excellent. Very good. Lisa, thank you so much. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you, Joe.
You bet.